What is going on, everyone? It's that time of the week again. Welcome into the TDR Trade to Black podcast, weekly recap of the biggest developments in cannabis presented by Dutchie. I am your host, Shad Dales. Looking back, it was a big week. A Supreme Court tease on guns and cannabis. We had safety alarms around hemp, back-to-back headlines out of California, also some new banking data and state tracking upgrades, and some fresh moves from leading operators. So big week. I know everybody's waiting for that hearing, but it's wait and see right now, but still lots going on. So let's get into the TDR weekly recap presented by Dutchie. All right, let's first get into it, titled Guns and Cannabis. The Justice Department just acknowledged what court watchers already see. Rulings on whether marijuana users can legally own firearms are all over the map. 7 federal appeals courts, the 3rd, the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th, and 11th have weighed in, each using a slightly different test. So what's going on here? At the center is Section 922, which bars unlawful users of controlled substances, including cannabis, from possessing guns. After the Supreme Court's 2022 Gruen decision, lower courts started poking holes in that ban, and they should. So here's the twist. DOJ isn't asking the court to take every case. They want the justices to zero in on the U.S. versus Hemani, a cleaner fact pattern, while punting messier petitions like Baxter. The justices will discuss these on October 10th. So the translation here, the courts could soon decide whether millions of cannabis consumers must choose between joints and Glocks. Why they have to choose is beyond me. All right, let's now move to Massachusetts, where health data shows ER visits for kids under 13 tied to cannabis nearly doubled, up 97% in 3 years. Most cases were accidental. Some involved cannabis-induced psychosis. Licensed operate INSA points to the unregulated hemp gray market. Reporters found candy look-alike gummies labeled at 500 milligrams THC per serving. Wow, 100 times the legal limit. So in return, lawmakers at every level are looking close to loopholes. But for now, parents, doctors, and kids are stuck in an uncontrolled edible experiment. Another reason to get this regulated and first step rescheduling. I would go for full descheduling, but man, oh man, another example of the dangers of the illicit market. Let's now head west to California, and we're keeping 2 California stories back to back here. First, a win for the legal market. Governor Gavin Newsom signed AB 564, pausing a planned 25% excise tax hike. The rate stays at 15% until 2030, giving operators some breathing room after years of razor-thin margins and pressure from the illicit market. Industry reaction so far has been relief, some calling it a lifeline, though many say the months of uncertainty already cost sales and jobs. The bottom line here, it's not a cure-all, but it's real oxygen for licensed players. But another thing to highlight too, Big Mike was on our live stream on Friday, and he said this was the excise tax at one time, 15%. So he thinks this is all smoke and mirrors. Staying in California, where authorities in northern Mendocino County executed 3 search warrants, seizing 6,259 plants and 612 pounds of cannabis. Investigators also found banned pesticides and toxic chemicals on site. So the takeaway is familiar. Compliant operators carry heavy costs to meet standards, while rogue grows cut corners, sometimes dangerously. Legalization, let's face it, isn't just taxes, it's consumer and environmental safety. Another reason, again, to regulate cannabis. Next up, for the first time in years, FinCEN released fresh cannabis backing data. Banks must file suspicious activity reports when serving cannabis clients. The new snapshot, roughly 80% of filings are routine marijuana limited, 13% are marijuana termination. Filings have nearly doubled since 2015, while participating institutions have grown modestly to around 816 banks and 182 credit unions. Access is expanding, but without safe banking, everyone remains stuck in costly, outdated compliance loop. Does that surprise anyone? Not me, and I'm sure not you either. All right, let's move now over to the Cavalier State in Virginia, where the medical program now runs on real-time seed-to-sale tracking via Metric. In the first 2 months, nearly $30 million in sales and over 256,000 transactions were logged. Early demand splits are clear: flower leads, then concentrates, edibles, and trim. Regulators plan a public dashboard next, and with 2026 legalization talks heating up, the infrastructure is quietly getting ready. Come on, Virginia. Now let's focus on Missouri. A St. Louis County bill to ban hemp-derived THC products in convenience stores and gas stations was pulled back after pushback from retailers and distributors. Can you believe this? With no statewide track and trace for hemp, the Wild West is definitely continuing. Industry groups say only the state legislature can fix this. County by county bans won't cut it. If people would only realize what they're buying here. Now let's move to the corporate side of the industry, and first up is HITI, who's opening up 3 new Canna Cabana stores. The expansion continues. North York and Etobicoke, which are suburbs of Toronto, and Fort McMurray, Alberta, bringing the footprint now to 210 locations across Canada. CEO Raj Grover says strong free cash flow supports self-funded growth at 2 to 3 stores per month. Wow, focused on high-revenue neighborhoods. So another example how High Tide is growing. All right, let's now go into some deeper numbers. Where next up is Jushi Holdings, who modified its loan with FVCBank, adding $4 million, extending maturity to September 18th, 2030, and cutting the interest floor from 8.25% to 7.5%. More time, cheaper money, same Virginia collateral, fuel for CapEx, and working capital. So some good moves here by Jushi. Next company to focus on is Grown Rogue, who acquired the remaining 30% of its Illinois subsidiary, Rogue EBC, for $1.5 million in stage payments, pending regulator sign-off. That's full control as they deploy their craft, efficiency-driven flower model in Illinois next after a strong New Jersey launch. So some good stuff going on with Grown Rogue as well. Let's now move to earnings season, some upcoming important dates. As operators expand and restructure, we're also heading straight, as I said, into earnings season. Several major players just locked in the reporting dates. First up is Tilray. They'll report October 9th, Q1 2026 results. Curaleaf, November 6th, Q3 2025 results. Verano Holdings, October 29th, Q3 2025 results. So mark those three in your calendar. Those are arguably the three or one of the three biggest companies in the cannabis space. Also, some news to share is Rubicon Organics, who will be presenting at a small cap discoveries in Vancouver and the Planet Microcap Showcase in Toronto. So Margaret Brody continues to get her message out there. And one last thing I want to highlight, which could be maybe the most important thing we saw this week, index inclusion is official for Curaleaf. They've been added to the S&P TSX Composite Index, which was big news for Curaleaf and for the overall industry. So that's your weekly recap on Traded Black presented by Dutchie. We had guns and cannabis headed towards the Supreme Court. We had hemp safety alarms, California back-to-back with tax relief and enforcement, banking data returning, Virginia's tracking upgrade, and a busy slate of corporate updates leading right into earnings season. So keep your eyes on the prize and stay focused. I know we're in the waiting game, but still lots going on. In the meantime, enjoy your weekend. Make sure to like, subscribe, and smash on that bell for all notifications of what was the biggest highlight for you this week. We'd love to get your feedback. And one last thing, make sure to scan this QR code and become a daily baked-in newsletter subscriber, which is delivered to your inbox weekdays Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, which gives you all the latest information on the business and the reform side of the cannabis industry. That's it for now. We'll see you next week. And like I said, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you in our next video. This is the TDR Trade to Black weekly recap, biggest developments in cannabis presented by Dutchie, and I am your host, Shad Dales. So long, everyone.